All right, so we really felt like this was something that was really necessary for us to do, especially with the climate in the U.S. right now, and just in the world in general, and just historically, African Americans as a whole. There's been a lot of oppression, and we've really been trying to climb out of that for 200 something years. But we can see that we still have a long way to go, and especially for African American men. So we wanted to take this opportunity to kind of change the narrative, so to speak, on that, so that people can really see, the better light, who African American men truly are. A lot of times all you see, in the media is what, Charlie, sports. You'll see, people doing music. Something that we can use to kind of entertain people, but that's about the extent of what you see when it comes to African American men. So I've got some absolutely incredible African American men in this with me, and they all happen to be my family. Isn't that amazing? I got my cousin Charles Wells, who is just an absolutely wonderful. He's a business executive, very intelligent, and so he's going to be bringing some really great wisdom to the table for us here today. Even from the corporate aspect of what we see with African American men on that front, and then I got my our older cousin. He's older than me and Charlie, Arthur, who actually works in law enforcement. And I know some of y'all may have seen, because his picture is about to go viral right now on Facebook. He took a photo, and I'll see if I can throw that in here. But he took a photo with himself in two different ways, as just a common civilian, but then also as a law enforcement officer. And he made some really great points about, and we'll talk a little bit about that, what he would have done had he been in that same situation, and the fact that, we can't group all law enforcement officers into the same thing. I mean, honestly, that's what we're talking about this for. We don't want people to do black men like that. We don't want people to do African Americans that way. So we have to use that same focus and mindset, even when we're thinking of law enforcement officers. So he's going to bring some real good information to the table for that. I'm Troy. I'm a nurse practitioner. I just opened my own practice in the Atlanta area, and I'm just hoping that can really, bring some relief to people who don't, because my clinic is called Oasis Healthcare Service, and it's mainly for people who don't have insurance. And we know, and then we'll talk a little bit too about all the disparities that we've seen with COVID-19. So African Americans, we've kind of been under the gun in two different ways, all right? With African American men, we've seen, Ahmaud Arbery and all these other ones, even before that, Sandra Bland and all that stuff, African Americans dying, at the hands of some police officers and, that sort of thing. But also, we were the highest race to have the highest mortality rate when it comes to coronavirus, COVID-19, because of a lot of our comorbidities and things like that, due to the lack of health insurance, and that sort of thing. So that's the reason that Oasis was created, so that we can take away all the excuses for people having access to care. And last but not least is the king of our family. This is Deacon Arthur Brady. I can't even begin to start, talking about our grandfather, and how we are all here. He's a husband. He is a father. He is a grandfather. He is a great grandfather. To all to all of us, and his wisdom we've relied on. We've stood on his shoulders, over the course of all of our lives. I don't know, Chippy, I'm sure you, Charlie, all y'all have your own personal stories that y'all remember of Grandpa growing up. Some of my favorites were going to New York and staying with him and Grandma. Grandpa bought me a bike one time at a block party just so I could get this race, and win $10. But he's always been an example for us, especially the men in our family, even the women, with how they should be treated in the example of a man. But for us males in our family, of what an upstanding, intelligent man who can persevere through anything, remain dignified, and just exude wisdom and knowledge all the time. This is my grandfather. And down, here in the city that we're in, Watley, Georgia, he's well known, but he's well known everywhere he goes, especially within the churches and that kind of thing, because he brings a level of influence with him. And so we all aspire to be, like Grandpa. Chippy, you want to throw anything in there right now?
First of all, thanks for having me, Troy. I appreciate it. Second of all, Grandpa, it's always good seeing you, and I'm glad Troy's putting you on with this technology. So,
Right, that's right.
so this is something that definitely, I'm sure it wasn't around back in the days. So it's good that we can be in these different states and cities and yet still be unified and together and be able to hold a conversation in a positive aspect and shed light to others. Third of all, pardon my appearance, but New York doesn't have barbershops open. Y'all looking good.
We got you, cousin. We got you, cousin.
I'm like, dang, Georgia got the barbershops open, I see, because y'all got y'all lines fresh. And I'm
Hey, look, I looked like you yesterday, but yesterday, enough was enough, man. I said, I can't do this no more. I put me on the mask. I called my barber. I said, hey, Will, what y'all doing over there in the barbershop, man? I can't do this no more, man. It's been months, And I think Charlie went before I did you, Charlie?
Oh, man. So I don't want to throw people off with the picture that you're going to show them later, but that's me. Believe it, it's me. No, I'm just blessed to have family like you guys. One thing that trickled down from Grandpa to me is family and the importance of family and the love and the unity of family. And I definitely try to hold it. Like I know we don't talk all the time, but you guys are always in my hearts and my minds. And when we do talk, it's like we pick up from day one. When I do visit Atlanta and visit you guys, it's like nothing's changed. It's like it feels so normal. We got pictures
all day long
from childhood, together, and I remember, grandpa and grandma and our parents used to get together on holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, stuff like that, and just unite the cousins and make sure we tight,
Yep. And we tear up a bunch of stuff, mess up a whole bunch of stuff, have folks mad at us, but we had a good time.
But another thing is I just like I like that we're from different places, It seemed like it was kind of a migration from New York to Georgia between the sisters, your mothers and Auntie Susan. And so my dad decided to stay in New York, I guess. I don't know the deep story of that, but we were the only ones that stayed in New York. And sometimes I wonder how my life would have changed, or if anything would have been different if I would have had that southern aspect of being raised in the South rather than being raised up here in New York. I just don't know. You guys can shed light, but I don't know if there are differences being raised in the North and the South from our era, like 1985 and up. You know what I'm saying?
And I think that's a great point that you make. I'm getting ready to kick it over to Charlie, and I just want to make sure everybody knows that we are all first cousins. Okay, so all of our parents are his children. All right, so Chip's dad is his son. Yep. My mom is the baby. Charles' mom is the oldest sister. And then we have also our Aunt Susan. She just happened not to have any boys. She had all girls. Yeah. But we're all first cousins, and we grew up together. And I'm so proud of my cousins, and So Charlie, talk to us a little bit.
Charlie.
Yes, sir. So again, Troy, thank you for having me. Thank you for having the vision to even put this together. Right. Especially with what's going on currently. I can tell you guys, one of the things that kept me up last night, just thinking about today and having this conversation with my first cousins and my grandfather, was, how much diversity we have. And Chip talked about this. Within our family, we have a lot of similarities, but we also have a lot of diversity. We share different viewpoints, but I think we all have a common goal right now. We want to see justice. We want to see a level playing field, and just to get on here and dialogue. Hopefully, this blesses the people that decide to watch it. Right. Hopefully they enjoy it, join the conversation. Again, our demographic is similar. We're all born in 85. We all stand over 6 feet. We're all professional. We're all confident. We're all raised to speak our mind and to stand up for what's right. Right. So hopefully this candid conversation can shed light and give people perspective in terms of what they see or what's being portrayed in the media of who a black man is.
That's it. That's it, cousin.
As you said earlier, Troy, this is not your LeBron James. This is not your T.I., your Killer Mike. This is 3 working class guys that want to see a level playing field throughout our nation.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love the way you put that, cousin. So now we're gonna jump over to Grandpa, and what I wanted to do here was, because Grandpa just has a wealth of wisdom and knowledge. I just want him to talk to us a little bit, first about if he could go back, because Grandpa was raised in the Deep South. He was born in the 30s, but through the 40s and 50s, that in the Deep South, those were some of the worst times, for African American people. So I want Grandpa to kind of just talk to us a little bit, from the perspective of an African American man, what it was like for you growing up during that time.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank God for finding this moment to be. And I can see a few of my grandsons come together, men of wisdom and knowledge, and certainly blessed and being a blessed. So I just want to thank Troy and Charlie and Skip and Chip just for thinking of this. And this is so great. You're making me feel real good and proud of my grandsons. Well, I was born about 4 miles from here, which is all Jefferson County, back in the 30s. And I really didn't realize what was going on, of course, when you're growing up. Because in many cases that it was totally segregated, totally divided, black and white, back in those days. And even in before school and playing with your counterparts or with people of opposite race, it wasn't mindful. It seems that it was okay to do so until you didn't realize the difference until you grew up, and you try to hold on to that friendship, maybe what you have had as a little child growing up, but society and the environment wouldn't allow you to do it. So up in the 50s, we had segregated schools, of course, okay? All blacks, all whites, and mostly what the books that we had studied back in those days, especially the blacks, was always mostly trickled down from the white school. So we just got basic, sometimes toned up books to study back in those days. Okay? And when I finished, I heard when I finished high school here in Wadley, Georgia, when I first heard about the difference and started recognizing the struggle that black men was going through, even to that time, just before Dr. King. This was just before Dr. King came on the scene. It was my commencement exercise speaker named Dr. Moss from Savannah, Georgia, and he recognized and introduced us to what was happening and what was about to happen as far as segregation. And he made us realize the struggle that they have been through and they had to overcome. And so it kind of triggered something in my mind, in my heart. I'll never forget it. And I'll never forget the setting. And when I left in 1955, I graduated from down here and I went to join the Air Force. It was 1 year before Emmett Till situation. I think Emmett Till back in 54, 55, more or less, that situation in Mississippi. So I went to Mississippi. My basic training was in Texas, and tech training was in Mississippi. I was a radio intercept operator, and I learned international Morse code, and I was shipped to the Philippines. But during that time in Mississippi, it was tense time. I left here, went to Savannah on a train called a Nancy Hag during that time. Me and two of my other friends, and we went to Atlanta to go through the process. Then we were shipped to Texas, San Antonio, Texas, and then after that to Biloxi, Mississippi. Going to Mississippi, well, we got there on the train. It was just me, but later on I found out another one of my classmates was there, was named James Bell. Going to Mississippi, I learned that trains with segregation and everything. When we got off the train, we had to sit or stand if we wanted to go to the bus, waiting on a bus or anything. We had certain places that you had to stand. You couldn't mix, you couldn't mingle during that time. You just have to be segregated. And when we got on the bus, we went to the base, and through that training time, any time that they had a parade in Mississippi, only white was admitted, was no blacks. Okay. And so during that time, we boys kind of young, like you guys are, we would take off to New Orleans. We would get there any way we could, and down to Mardi Gras that time of year. It's that time of year. But what I'm saying is the segregation, that's when I began to realize and see the effects that black men, because if you're born in an environment, okay, and you're brought up in it, you got a lot of people that we didn't realize how poor we was, the segregation part of it, you don't realize so much. But as you grow older and you look back, you realize how difficult it was for your parents to really give you the basic things that you need. And so, but thank God, I had to give my mom some credit. My brother was just before me. He was about 3 years really, and he went in the army, and he was very bright and brilliant. He's gone on to glory now. But when he came back, he was able to take advantage of the GI Bill they had. So the GI Bill, he was able to go to college. And in college, he was a bright man in mathematics and science. Because the government sent these fellows, they went on government money. When they built a weather satellite center in Washington. That's how he got his home was in Washington. That's why he was located in Washington. The government called all the guys that they sent on the GI Bill back to Washington that was majored in mathematics and science. And so my brother was part of that group and became a scientist, one of the most famous. He's very bright and brilliant. Thank God for him. I'm not half as what he was really.
So education, Grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
How was education viewed then? Because it sounds like your mother, and people of your generation and even before, they looked at education a little bit differently than we do now. They felt like that was something, if it was available to you, you go get that.
That's right. Education, it was mostly teaching. That's all they could teach. Very few nurses. And that teaching part, those ladies really had to continue to go every year like they do now to keep up, more or less. But it was basic, training, basic teaching. And if anybody that did well in high school, they wind up teaching. So the teaching part, we had another great lady in the family named Dora Gordon. Mm-hmm. Dora Gordon was a part of Jefferson County. She started feeding children in schools in this county. Mm-hmm. And she was brought up to Atlanta recommended, gave plaques and all that stuff. But this family, as far as the education, you have Sister Coswell and all these are my mother's first cousin, are mostly women. No, none of the men we had to work from. It was sad. We would go to school, okay? We would go to school for the first 2 months of school, September, October. There was no boys in the school that were able to work. Okay, they had to keep them. They kept them out to gather the crops and that type of thing. But no boys. Only 2 boys. I was in one room and my brother was in another.
Wow.
Wow. Tolerate that.
Right. She wanted y'all to be educated.